Good morning everyone. Now for some reason I can hear myself. Where's that coming from, I wonder? Okay, seems to have stopped. If anyone's getting an echo at their end, I'd like to hear about it. Let me just try something else. No, it's not coming out of there. It is definitely coming from in here, so no idea where that's coming from at all. Weird. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all fit and well. If you were here yesterday, you'll know that I suffered one or two audio issues. Looks like they're still continuing. I fixed the previous ones in the traditional way. I switched the system off and switched it back on again. As I say, that cured yesterday's issues, but I've got some new ones today. Yeah, and I don't know if you can hear this, but in my in-ear monitors, fairly sure I can hear the distant sound of jungle drums. Maybe it's my imagination, or maybe some organisations are being run like tin pot third world dictatorships. So hard to tell the difference. Not entirely sure what's going on here. I wish I could nail this down. Let me just have a very quick look at something, make sure I've not got anything lurking in the background. No, nothing there. It's very strange. I've definitely got an echo. Steve Williamson, what do you use the earphones for? Basically to take out the echo. If I play it through this, I don't get the echo, but I can also hear and monitor my sound, which is a useful thing to be able to do. I just wish I could figure out exactly why I could hear myself. Not entirely sure, but we'll press on anyway. In unrelated news, I spent a large part of last night culling. Yeah, got rid of a load of unengaged and toxic people from my LinkedIn follower list, and then I felt inspired, so I took a bunch of people out of the Demolition Insider subscriber list for the same reason. Mainly because of the company they keep, actually. And I'm going to be doing the same again today and possibly into the future with the Demolition News subscriber list, although that one's going to take a lot longer. So if in a few weeks' time you're still receiving stuff from me, then you've survived the cull. All that aside, it occurred to me this morning, we're now less than a fortnight away from our 700th show. Of course, 700, not really a landmark. Our next real landmark is our 1000th show, which is more than a year away, but still, 700. Now, today's Finally Home show contains all the usual elements: question of the day, mystery machine, happy bits, sad bits, chat, banter, and general nonsense. So without further ado, how about we get the show on the road with a little bit of this. Now I'm going to throw over to the chat. No, I thought I'd cured the problem, but I haven't. Throw over to the chat. Gary Muirhead says, perhaps the Chinese have hacked your system. I can't imagine why they'd be interested, but you never know. Tristan Mays is coming to us live from a warm and sweaty Lagos, all the way over in Nigeria, and says, I'm glad I made it past the cull. Yes, you did. You did. Are you toxic? Of course you are, but in a good way. I kind of like that. So, yes. Peter McKenna can hear. Is anybody else picking up an echo in the background? Be interested to know. But yes, let's crack on and pretend nothing else is going wrong. It is Tuesday. Just one more thing. Let me just see if I can do something here. I wonder if that's got it. Yes, I seem to. No, I thought I'd cured it. I have not cured it. I shouldn't really be trying to fix this while I'm live, should I? So let's crack on, shall we? In today's show, no, I tell you what, let me do the date first. Thrown off my game completely. It is Tuesday, the 26th of March. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, how Steelwrist made one of the best even better. We're getting smart with Komatsu. Remoquip makes remote control a perfect option. And we're finding out what Atlas Weyhausen has in store for us all at Intermat 2024. Plus, Will our future be littered with relics of the past? But before we get to all of that, there is the small matter of today's mystery machine. So let me bring up the appropriate animation, and then I'll show you exactly what it is that you've got to work with. Right, here is the mystery machine that you need to identify. It looks like that. It's not a huge amount to go on, I grant you, but that's where we start every single day, with a single frame. If anybody has got any clue as to what that machine might be, please let us know in the chat. We'll be going back to that during the show, obviously, but I'll leave that up just for a little bit longer while you're all trying to squint at it. Let's have a look what we got here. Steve Williamson has gone straight in with Mechalak. Oh, that was remarkably quick. Please let us know if you've got anything more to add to that, because I'm looking for specific models. Jim Turner has just arrived as well. Good morning to you, Jim. And Ken Hatcher is saying, all okay here, no sound. I hope that means you can hear me, but you're not getting an echo. It maybe just be in my ears. While you're trying to figure out exactly, there's another guess on our mystery machine, Volvo ECR 88. It is not one of those. While you're trying to figure that out, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day. And I've just realised I'm not actually reminding you, because I don't think I posted it the first time, because I was too busy trying to sort out my audio issues. That's what the question looks like in the chat, and here is what it looks like as a reminder. Well, I can tell you we've already got a winner of our mystery machine, which has completely ruined that part of the show, but well done, Steve Williamson. I'll come back to you in just a second. But our question of the day comes from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead, and it is this. If you could be any world leader, past or present, who would you be? Now, obviously, at first I was thinking Winston Churchill, a great world leader, great wartime leader, and one of the greatest Britons of all time, in my humble opinion. But I've changed my mind. For the good of the world, I'd like to be Donald Trump. I would call a global press conference, and then I would spend an hour punching myself repeatedly in the face. But what about you? What about you? What world leader, past or present, would you most like to be? Let us know in the chat. We'll come back to that at the end of the show. And I can tell you, we do, as I say, have a winner on our mystery machine. No, it's not one of those, actually. It's that one. There you are. Steve Williamson, with just a single frame, has identified that the machine in question is... Let me take Steve off the screen just a second. There you are. It is a Mechalak 8 MCR. Well done, Steve. And he says, sorry, I know my Mechalak. No need to apologise. That's exactly why we're here. Come back to the question of the day in just a moment, because we do have a show to be getting on with. Yes, let us have your answers on the question of the day today. Obviously, the mystery machine is over and done with, but let us have your answers. Which world leader would you most like to be? Okay, just seen one of the answers to that. I'll come back to that in just a moment. But first, we do need to crack on with the show. Yeah, it's been more than a week since I stopped living in Germany. Thanks to the trip to JCB last week, we finally got around to editing our Steelwrist film. So apologies to all of you, and more specifically, apologies to Steelwrist for the delay. But I now have for you the first of our Steelwrist films. Now, I do need to dredge this off of my hard drive because it's quite a big lump of a file. Bear with me for 2 ticks while I dredge this up.
New XTR20 tiltrotator model, which has a lot of new features, because this tiltrotator is not an update of our older versions. This is a totally new product for us, and all the parts, all the bits and pieces in this unit are totally new and new design for us.
with all our products, since start, we actually used steel castings. But in this model, we have taken it a bit further. So now we have a fully casted upper coupler and the gearbox, and also the quick coupler below the tilt rotator where we attach all the work tools. And the good thing with castings in steel is that we can put material where we want it for strength reasons, and we can take it away where we don't need it. So basically, we get sturdy stuff where we need sturdy stuff, and big surfaces where we need big surfaces, and then we can slim down weight where we don't need weight. And that's basically the beauty with the castings for us, is that we can save the weight, increase the strength, and then maintain a good building height. So this model is actually lower and lighter compared to our old generation.
We have changed the design in our tilt cylinders. So for this model, we have shorter tilt cylinders, and how we can make it possible is that the fastening point for the tilt cylinders on the upper coupler. So we have moved the joint up here and lengthened the cylinder downwards to still keep the 45 degrees tilting angle on it. And with this design, we also get the tilt rotator more narrower, so the tilt cylinders are not pointing out on the sides and not moving inwards as much while you're doing your tilting motion. And the force is kept better than in the older versions through the whole tilting cycle.
Even if we are more narrow on the top,
Yep.
we still have a good amount of space for pulling out hoses to the machine. And that's always a trick with tilt rotator applications, where we want to have big hoses coming down to full flow applications down, and still don't get smashed between the arm of the excavator and the cylinders.
We have protected the cylinder hoses very well. So you can see that we have a bended plate covering the cylinder hose fastening up here to protect them even more from falling rocks and whatever it could be.
We have in this new design, we have a totally new gearbox and a new rotation motor, which gives us increased rotation torque in the most used function of the tilt rotator. And that's, of course, obviously very, very interesting. And we have a totally new design on how we keep the quick coupling below and all the work tools securely hanging to the rest of the unit.
And the rotation torque is totally different compared to our old models. And this is a design that nobody else has ever done before. So it is very, very unique to live with tilt rotator from now on. We also have a new gripper with this 3-finger gripper. The gripper arms are made in Hardox. And why do we, perhaps you ask sometimes, why do we put so much effort to a gripper? Because I think that this is, in this size, I think this is our 5th or 6th model of gripper. But on certain markets where you always choose the gripper for your tilt rotator, they actually decide which brand of tilt rotator they choose for the machine. So the gripper is very, very important, especially for the Scandics, but we can see that in the United States also, a lot of our tilt rotators are chosen with the gripper option. So we do need to work a lot with our gripper, and this gripper is state of art, I would say, compared to what we've seen before.
Fully covered cylinders, and it's very narrow, despite that we have this full cover. And as you might see, the gripper jaw is actually pointed downwards by 10 degrees, and that increases the reach of the gripper. And that improves my maneuverability around the work site. So that's a small but important improvement, I would say.
You can see that this model here is equipped with the SQ fully automatic solution. So you can connect and disconnect the tilt rotator directly from your excavator without leaving a cabin. But that is, of course, an option that is not chosen by all of our customers. So that we also sell the units with symmetrical type Olco without the Olco. But with this new design of the upper coupler, it's possible to upgrade afterward. So if you have bought a symmetrical unit, S60, then you can upgrade it to SQ60. Very easy. And we are also introducing absolute tilt sensor and rotation sensor. And why we are using those functions in our tilt rotator is because very, very often our customers connect their tilt rotator to the 3D machine control systems. And in this case, when we have an absolute sensor for tilt also, there will be no need for an external tilt sensor anymore in tilt rotator. So this is not an update. This is a totally new state of art tilt rotator that Steelwrist or somebody else on the market has never done before.
Let me try that again. I'm going to say a very quick good morning to HG Machines. Just to let you know, I fixed the problem in my ears, but so doing that, I've turned the microphone off. So let me say it again. HG Machines are watching over on Instagram. I'm looking forward to meeting up with you guys. I know you're in Denmark, but I'll be meeting up with you in Paris. But I'd like to speak to you before that. Lots of people still telling me that I'm without sound. Now, going back to Steelwrist, let me go back to Steelwrist. Yeah, seems like they've thought of everything. Well done, Team Steelwrist. I agree. It was one of those. I do want to throw this one up just to address it, because Graham says, or Footy says rather, be better if we could have seen it on a machine. The problem was the launch was actually done in an office. Nothing we could do about any of that. But every once in a while, you do see a product where it does genuinely look like they have thought of everything. I would say the Jumbo that Lorini made for Despe, that would be a good example. The 980 Demolition machine from Liebherr. But Steelwrist, it was literally a case of everything they pointed at. It was like, yeah, good idea. So let me go back through all of these. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says the Steelwrist looks amazing. Looks a decent bit of kit. That's a fair upgrade, says Peter McKenna. Steve Williamson says definitely is a sexy looking Steelwrist. Apparently, that's universal, because Gary Muirhead also says Steelwrist. Sexy. Just so you know, that was my sexy voice. And I've still got 4 children. It's remarkable, isn't it? Let's have a look. Gary Muirhead has just said, have you got the battery pin video ready yet, Mark? No, it is not the next one on the list. I think it's the one after that, but it is coming. Keep an eye out for that. Steve Williamson says, more rotation talk. Definitely happy with that upgrade. Our friend Mick saying, bit of a waste of time putting his £28 pin hammer on eBay. Yeah, you could be right. Chris Ford, taking a slight diversion, but we were talking about all things JCB yesterday. We were talking about tilt rotators today. Jumped on with the JCB tilt rotator and looked a right tit. I don't believe that to be a case. Hats off to anyone that can operate it. Too many buttons for me for a quick go. I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I think tilt rotators and new sets of controls, you know, I'm assuming you got to operate it on the Hydra Dig up at JCB. New machine, new tilt rotator. You're not going to learn that in 5 minutes, are you? So no, I think you do yourself a favor, and yeah, I think you did okay. Steve Williamson says gripper is a must. Says one of the finest proponents of the gripper in the entire world. Gary Muirhead says, can't wait to see it in person on the stand at Scott Plant. No, I'm sure you can't. Who else have we got here? Now, if anybody would like to see it actually on a machine, which is exactly what Footy was asking for, I'll be using the new Open S Steelwrist option on the Nox tilt rotator in Paris. Make sure you get yourself to Paris. Lots of people telling me I've gone quiet, but I'm back on again now. There you are. Steve Williamson says putting it to the test is the only way to tell. Hope to see a new in Paris. And at least you're honest, Chris. Yeah, but give yourself a break, Chris. I think getting to learn a new machine in that space of time, not particularly easy. So shall we crack on? I think we probably should, because we're going to get smart in just a moment.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, we've talked here before about Komatsu's intelligent machine control system and the company's commitment to smart construction, but it's been a little while, so I thought it was time for a bit of a recap.
You've got Smart Construction Remote and you've got Smart Construction Dashboards. Now, Remote is essentially my way of accessing all the machines online, so I don't have to go to a machine to interact with it. So this includes uploading designs onto it. I can even change the settings on their machines, like their blade wear, sort of what buckets they've got attached and things like that. So when I get a phone call from another site asking me for assistance, I can go on Remote, I can access the machine, I can see exactly what they're seeing, and I can change all the settings and I can make adjustments while also talking to the person on the other end and showing them how to do it. Dashboard is the survey side of things, so this is the things that the machine operators won't see. a weekly drone survey will be done, and then it will upload onto dashboard, which is this here, and we'll be able to see from that the levels site-wide, and we can take measurements off of this, we can compare it to final designs, we can compare it to previous drone surveys, and it's a great supporting tool because it's not just the surveying side of things that it assists with, it's also tracking what work's being done, how quickly it's being done, but also a record of proof because you have a weekly snapshot. It frees up a lot of my time. I'm not required to go out on site and survey the whole site every single week. With the IMC machines, they have this as-built data. It takes readings directly from the machine. So in between this drone survey, which was taken about 2 weeks ago, and this as-built data, which is uploaded daily, this is everything that has changed on site. So this particularly here is a burrow pit, and you can see here that because the machines have been working in it with the IMC, they've taken points and recorded data off of it, and I haven't had to go out and survey that. I haven't had to wait for another drone survey to update. That is data that appears daily, and so it speeds everything up essentially. It also makes things safer. So if you consider when we're digging a trench maybe 6 meters deep, I can't go into the bottom of that trench, it's not safe. But the machine will pick up absolutely all the data that I need, and it's a record of what we've done in a day, especially with these big trenches or big excavations where you want to dig it out as quickly as possible, and then for safety you want to backfill it and reinstate the ground as quickly as possible.
Just a little bit surprised. I'll come back to that in just a second. Really looking forward to catching up with Komatsu at Intermat 2024. The company looks set to have one of the biggest and most extensive displays, and they're always great company. The reason I'm surprised, now listen, let me be absolutely clear. I consider you all of you, every single man, woman, and child of you, to be legends in your own lifetime. But we do have a real life, living, breathing industry legend watching right now. The man that put Steelwrist on the map. Morning, Pat. After all the years of preaching, it's great to see tilt rotators in the mainstream media. Not entirely sure I would consider myself mainstream media. Barely consider myself media. But Pat, kilt-wearing Pat, who the man who basically, if you're running a Steelwrist today, or if you run one in the past, the chances are that the reason you're doing so is Pat. Absolute pioneer of the tilt rotator concept. Remember talking tilt rotators and kilts, oddly, at Plantworks. Pat, fantastic to see you. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. Let's have a look who we got. Steve Williamson says 12 years working tilt rotators and still learning new ways to do different tasks. I'm sure that's the case. Mick has said, I think I need to treat myself to one of these machine exhibitions. I'm falling behind so much. As long as I can take the hound and he behaves himself by not cocking his leg at the first set of tracks he sees. The problem is the one that would be best for you would be Plantworks, which is a year away. The other one obviously is Hillhead this year, and quite a long way from the Isle of Dogs, I would say. Peter McKenna. Going back to the Komatsu film, I've worked for DGS. They're a great company. One of my mates drives them. They are at the forefront of tech on site. Steve Williamson, some kind of system we have here with the Trimble we use. The engineers in the office can see everything and upload files and take recorded points via remote. It's the way forward. We'll be coming back to a possible future in just a few moments. Product Link's come a long way these days. Yes, it most certainly has. Great explanation of what GPS machines have to offer. Totally agree. I meant every word, Pat. I genuinely do. I had a long chat with Joe Westman while I was over in Germany. Joe obviously worked with Pat in the past. Well, I say obviously, Joe did work with Pat in the past, and we were both talking about how basically Pat put Steelwrist on the map here in the UK. Obviously, they'd been very successful in the Scandic countries, but yeah, if as I said, if you're running Steelwrist and you're in the UK, you have Pat to thank for it. There is. All truly wonderful technology, but can it cater for totally dyslexic operator in the cab? Text to voice functionality. Good question. I do have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about that at the moment. In actual fact, one of the things that I did when I wasn't culling my LinkedIn list last night, I've started to pull together something a bit more in depth on industry literacy or the lack thereof. That will come back, and just to highlight the point, there you are. There is a footy saying that data went straight out of my head, didn't mean anything to me, and therein lies the problem. And I am an advocate for technology. I believe that GPS, tilt rotators, all of that intelligent machine control, I think it is a fantastic contribution to the industry. But we can't leave people like footy behind. No man left behind. There's Gary Muirhead saying good morning to Pat. Jim Turner, going back to the intelligent machine control, great way of keeping tabs on everything. It must make management so much easier. I'm sure it does. There will be an article on the S-Type X-Dipper plate in Earth Movers Mag next month, Pat. Will there? Well, there you are. And there is Pat saying kind words. Meant every word. What we got here? Footy saying I'd like to get my hands on the tilt rotator thing and play with it. I should imagine it's just like doing the demo machine, doing the grabs and the munches, everything else. Good learning curve for me if I get the chance, that is. Yeah, well, let's hope you do. At work, they use a drone to survey sites. Why would you not? Imagine the man hours that you'll say, particularly a big site, big house building site where you've got a big plot of land. Do you really want to send somebody around, or do you want to send a drone up in the sky and get it done? And you can repeat that day after day after day. You can plot the course on a drone and just repeat it. There is Steelwrist UK, not the same now without Pat. I can't speak for that. I mean, no, certainly when I go to shows, that is definitely the case. They were fantastic hosts when I was over in Hamburg last week. But yeah, it is a slightly weird thing. You get so familiar. It would be like turning on. Steelwrist UK without Pat is like Top Gear without Clarkson. Yeah, I've said it out loud. There you are. Everything can't suit everybody. Things are designed and made to suit the majority. It's just how life works. Very true. But, bearing in mind, we do live in an era where we are very concerned with discrimination and that kind of thing. Should we really be discriminating against those that have a learning issue like dyslexia, and those that are also that have also been let down and failed by the UK Education Service? If that's the case, should we not be making allowances for them? Let's have a look. I have a SciTech on the case on the dyslexia talk. Waiting to hear back from them. I'd look forward to that. Engineer can take a whole day. Drone takes 10 minutes. There you are. I'm going to use Steve's words to back up exactly what he says. Work smarter, not harder. And there you are. Pat has left Steelwrist UK in good hands. Well, as I say, I had a great chat with Joe Westman. We'll be featuring that video in the not too distant future. He was very, very good value. I think because Pat had such a profound impact on the industry, because he had such a I'm sorry, I was just a bit distracted. Because he had such a profound impact on the industry, it seems weird without him. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just going over to this. Sorry, mate, got you on silent listening to a news conference from the States. Sad news. I know it's far reach from most of us, but stay safe, fellas, please. Yeah, I was. Listen, I got up a little bit later than I normally do. Late night last night. Didn't wake up on the usual time. So I came straight in here, put everything on silent, and put the show together. So the whole thing that's going on in Baltimore at the moment completely passed me by until people started talking about it in the WhatsApp group. I was completely and blissfully unaware. I will be catching up on it. There's Peter McKenna. I saw the news report as it happened. I will be catching up on it after the show. My apologies for not mentioning it before. Obviously my heart and thoughts go out to all those that are involved, including the first responders over there. But as I say, it's all taken me a bit by surprise. I wasn't aware that it was going on until, frankly, we were already here. So shall we crack on? Because we're a half an hour into the show and we've still got loads to get through. So how about we have a bit of this? We often talk about remotely controlled and autonomous machines here on the Breakfast Show. And whenever we do, there's always concerns about the impact upon employment within the industry, rightly so. But what if your machine could be controlled in the traditional way with an operator in the seat on one day, and then switched over to remote control for, say, a hazardous application the next day, and then the day after that, you convert it back again? Well, all of that is possible thanks to Remoquip. And there you are, Dan Cullen hitting the nail on the head there. A great concept on top down, in my opinion. Yeah, well, listen, not just your opinion, that would be my opinion as well. Again, if you've got a machine and you want it's going to go into a hazardous location, why not? Why not put it into remote control? And I realise that plant hires and rental companies are very conservative and they generally wait for a pull from the market before they commit to anything. But imagine being able to offer a skid steer or an excavator with a remote control option that could be put in and taken out as the need arises. And just to round that one out, because there's lots more chat going on, I've actually used the Remoquip system, and if I can operate it, frankly, anyone can. And I have to say, I was mightily impressed. I know a few demolition companies that have dabbled with it. I can see more of them following suit in the years ahead. Now, we do need to go back to the chat. Going back to the situation in Baltimore, Footy says, I did send you a WhatsApp message. You may well have done, but I had it on do not disturb. I'm afraid I've got it back on again now. Yeah, as I say, I was half an hour late to the show this morning, so I decided put everything on silent and just crack on and get the show ready. My apologies for not responding sooner. There is Pat saying, I'm not dead. Good, glad to hear it. Just having a little break. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm living proof that that is not the case. I'm learning new tricks every day. None of them worthwhile, but yeah. Peter McKenna says, I'm shocked at how slow construction companies have been regarding drone use on site. The technology has been around for years. I agree, 100%. But here's a thought. And I realise we tend to take things in silos and in little like pockets of information. Whenever we show you remote control machines, or more specifically, whenever we show you autonomous machines, obviously those of you amongst us that are construction equipment operators are up in arms about the potential loss of your jobs or the impact it might have on your future employment. If you are a traditional engineer with your bits of paper and your wooden stakes, how keen are you to use a drone, I wonder? My guess is it's exactly the same situation. You'll be resistant because you would see it as a threat to your job. But I think you're absolutely right, Peter. Peter, you missed it yesterday. We were talking about steps on diggers, about trip hazards sliding off. Yes, we were talking about that. And that's another thing I'm going to be addressing in the near future. Mick Norton says, as an old plant operator, now retired, I wonder how often the modern day 360 dozer cab control device of the GPS reports loss of signal. Good question, Steve Williamson. How often do you receive a loss of signal notification on your system? I'd love to hear from you. Peter McKenna says, there's been a large number of ships colliding with bridges and dockside cranes lately. Hope it's not failing in technology due to all the geomagnetic storms we've had of late. Geomagnetic storms. Didn't think I'd ever be saying those words on the show. Jim Turner. We've got two sides of this. Jim Turner. It's discrimination. It's just horses for courses. I can't spell, so I wouldn't go into a job where I need to. Same way that a fellow with no arms wouldn't get a job as a plant operator. It's not discrimination that fellow without arms can't get a job. It's just not practical. Discrimination is where you shun someone because of what they are, not because of their ability. Is one side. There you are, Peter McKenna, with the flip side. The Equality Act 2010 says you must not be discriminated against because you have a disability. Someone thinks you have a disability. This is known as discrimination by perception. You are connected to someone with a disability. This is known as discrimination by association. The point I am making here, and maybe discrimination is the wrong word. It probably is. But where you've got somebody like our friend Footy, who has been doing the job for 30 odd years, perfectly adequately, competently qualified, and all of the things that you would expect. But the industry goalposts have shifted, and now he is being left behind. I can't think of a better word, but to me, that smacks of discrimination. As I say, maybe not the right word, but it's something like that. Footy himself actually says, on the last job I was on, there was a guy out there on a loading shovel, only had one arm, and he was damn good at his job. I'm sure that's the case. Peter McKenna says, ableism is a discrimination of and social prejudice against people with disabilities based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. At its heart, ableism is rooted in the assumption that disabled people require fixing and defines people by their disability. Yeah. There you are. Mick Norton says loss of limb or limbs will not debar you from operating construction equipment, and you can have the machines modified. Going back to the question about how often do you experience a loss of signal, Steve Williamson says 3 times in 2.5 years I had no signal. And bearing in mind where Steve actually operates, he's up way up in the Highlands and the Highlands of Scotland. Where you would have thought loss of signal would be a fairly regular issue, even just using your cell phone. But 3 times in 2.5 years, I think that's a pretty good track record. Dan Collins says he operated the Remoquip at Hillhead. I operated it at ConExpo, I think. It was ConExpo, Alabama. I think it was ConExpo. Peter McKenna says there was a farmer driver in America, had no arms. He was more than capable of operating machines and tractors with just his legs. Didn't know. Our friend Mick says, took the handout at 4:30, came back, turned on TV. Not a good thing. Yeah, that's all that's going on over in Baltimore. As I say, I will be checking on that in the not too distant future. Remote 360s were employed by the Royal Engineers on bomb disposal tasks in the early 1960s. There you are. Chris Fultz, on the flip side, I've just said how good the Highlands have been. Loss of signal is standard in Derbyshire. It is a bit like Bandit Country. There's a lot of gaps in Derbyshire, isn't there? I notice that whenever I'm up there. Was there a design fault in the bridge? You would have thought it should have survived a ship strike without a total collapse. Again, I'm sure that will come out in the fullness of time. I'm sure there will be lots and lots of lawyers rubbing their hands together literally as we speak, because that's the way America works. Should we crack on? I think we probably should. Let's have some of this, because I've got some other stuff that I'd like to share with you.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Going to flip back to this very quickly. Is there sufficient satellite availability for UK GPS users? Says Mick Norton. Don't know the answer to that, but I know obviously you can get things like these Starlink systems that you can place on site, and you've basically got your own satellite network. Dan Cullen says, I know a guy, shit hot dozer operator with one arm. Yeah, perfectly possible. Perfectly possible. Now, I want to give you a bit of background on the film that I'm about to show you. Back at the beginning of the year, you might recall that I vowed to take a more analog approach to my work. Of course, this show requires me to use a computer, but I'm now in the habit of making notes in a physical notebook wherever I go. And there it is. It's right here in front of me. So when I found myself stranded in Hamburg a week or two ago, I took my trusty notebook and I started to sketch out several articles and a few videos as well. And I can tell you the one I'm about to play you in just a moment came from precisely there. It came literally out of nowhere, but I had a pen and a piece of paper in my hand, so I wrote it all down and I sketched it out in the space of about an hour and a half. So rather than telling you about it, I'm going to play it for you. It's deliberately poignant, but stick with me. I'm going to get this off the hard drive as well, because another big file. It's where is it? It will be. Today, when an item of construction or demolition equipment reaches the end of its practical working life, the owner of that machine has countless options. The machine might be retained but transferred into a less demanding application. If it's economically practical to do so, the machine might be granted a second life through remanufacturing. It could be sold and the money used to offset the cost of a replacement unit. It might be sent to auction to recoup any last value within it. Ultimately, it could be cannibalised for parts or, in extreme cases, sold for scrap. But what if it's the fuel rather than the machine that's reached the end of its viable working life? As we head slowly but inexorably towards the inevitable transition from traditional diesel power to an electric or hydrogen-fueled future, the options available are rather more limited. There will be no shifting of a machine into a less demanding application, because even reduced emission levels have been outlawed. It will become increasingly more difficult to sell that used machine because no one else will want it. Even the tried and tested system of selling machines to countries that are less concerned with all things environmental will be slowly eradicated. The machine might still be cannibalised for parts, but with each passing year there will be less and less commonality between the diesel-fueled machines of today and the future-fueled machines of tomorrow. So when electricity or hydrogen or a combination of the two becomes the industry's fuel of choice, will we see a glut of perfectly serviceable machines being scrapped? And if so, will the supply of scrap outstrip the demand for it? Even today, when we don't have a surfeit of scrap, there are thousands of machines rusting and rotting in fields, elephant graveyards for the mechanical age. Will our future be littered with relics from the past? In some ways, that would be a fitting end. Long dead machines being consumed by grass and trees, as Mother Nature reclaims the equipment that has caused us so much harm over the years. And maybe, just maybe, those desolate equipment graveyards will serve as a memorial to man's ingenuity, a permanent testament to man's impact, for good or for ill, on the planet upon which we all reside. Well, what do you think? Weird thing about that, I actually got quite sad while I was writing it. Imagine all those diesel machines. Every single day we get awfully excited about all these fancy new diesel machines. One day they could all just be rusting away in an industrial boneyard somewhere. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Gave you some food for thought. I will be putting that up on YouTube a bit later today. I'm going to say good morning, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but I know that they are my friends over in Sweden. Maskinallen. Maskinanallen. I think it's that. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but good morning, Sweden. And bizarrely, I'm talking to somebody in Sweden, but I hope Newcastle are doing okay. It's a bizarre conversation, I realise. Now, let's have a look. Going back to satellite connections and all of that good stuff, because we were talking about that not so long ago. Let me just tidy the studio up a little bit. At the moment, I'm on 15 satellites. That just blows my mind. It blows my bloody mind as well. 15 satellites. And my precise at the moment is 20 millimeters due to weather. That also blows my mind how really accurate you can be. Yeah. Bearing in mind that satellite is thousands of miles above your head, and there you are, being controlled down to 20 millimeters. Going to say good morning to Melvin Cross from Total Reclaims. Good morning, Melvin. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Hope you're all fit and well. Let's have a look. Mick says, don't worry about it, Mark. I got to the stage where I record most conversations. The old grey matter is a bit short these days. My biggest issue, and this is precisely why I did it, was if I have an idea, and I do occasionally, some of them are even good. If I have an idea and I go to my notes app on my phone, by the time I've opened my phone up and I get to see that I've got an email notification, or I've got an Instagram or a Facebook or a Twitter notification, my inclination is to go and have a look at that. And then by the time I get back to the notes app, I think, why was I here again? A bit like, that thing, those of a certain age will understand this, where you go upstairs, you get there and think, the hell am I doing here? That's to prevent that. So as I say, I just to show you, in addition to the notepad, I'm using note cards or index cards to produce articles. These are complete articles, all written while I was over in Hamburg. Just better use of my time. Steve, now we've just talked about machines basically going away, or diesel machines going away. Steve Williamson says, I got a message from a guy in Finland asking if I worked at WM Donald, or William Donald. He showed me his new machine. You could see where the stickers were. The old one from Scotland ended up in Finland. I have a tale to tell on that. Walk like an America. Not sure. Got lots of planes sitting there waiting to be scrapped. Junkyards full of scrap. Yeah, that was basically the inspiration for that article, or that video, funnily enough. Mick says, take a look at the blokes in India and Pakistan, how they reuse scrap. Bloody unreal. Yeah, indeed. Chris Ford says, the demise of the diesel engine is a long way off. Yeah, the more I talk to people about electric and hydrogen, the more I'm convinced that you're absolutely right. But the day will come. Been told I forget my round quite often these days. Bit like selective hearing. Yeah, I don't blame you at all. I used to have a friend who always seemed to have an iffy bladder whenever it was his round. Bizarre that. Now, I do want to go back to this one. When I was on Plant Manager's Journal about 1,000 years ago, just after the invention of the diesel engine, we had a column that we did in conjunction with the Kent Constabulary, or the Kent Police Force. They were having a big drive on all things to do with plant theft. So they were coming to us to learn what machines were, how to identify them, where the serial numbers lurked, and all that kind of thing. Anyway, as a result of that, we ended up producing what we refer to as what did we call it? The theft file, I think we called it. So once a month, because PMJ was a monthly magazine, we would put out a list of the machines that had been reported stolen. And on one occasion, we had a guy who had reported it was a backhoe loader. Reported his backhoe loader had been stolen and it vanished. We put out an all points bulletin as much as we could for PMJ, and hoped that somebody would help it be recovered. I reckon 3 months later, the guy that had originally reported that machine went on holiday to Cyprus. Lo and behold, just up the road from his hotel was his backhoe loader, still fully sign written. Yeah, true story. I realise it sounds like I'm making that up, but it's an absolutely true story. Let's have a look. Jim Turner says, but are all these disabled operators are asking for anything to be changed in their favour? And fair play to them for playing their hand they're dealt. So like I said, it should be discrimination if you won't employ them because of what they are. But if they can do the job like everyone else with the same kit, then fair enough. We're all different and not everyone can do what someone else is capable of. The point I'm making, Jim, and I fully understand where you're coming from, and you make your point very well. Here's the thing that I have an issue with, and I'm fairly sure I'm not alone in this. Where you have, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for this, but I'm just going to tell it straight. Footy has been driving machines for 30 years. He's been doing it well for 30 years. He's been fully employed for 30 years. He's rolled with the punches, getting his new cards and everything, although that was a bloody nightmare. But he's got his new cards. But because the industry has decided we need to go fully technological, rather than being here, Footy's now back here and the technology's over here. They have moved the goalposts. Again, I'm not sure discrimination is the right word, but should we not be doing something to ensure that those people come with us? That's the point. And as I say, I've been doing a bit of reading up on all things literacy wise. And one of the commitments, there was a report commissioned about 20 years ago called I think it was called the Leith Report or the Leach Report or something like that. I am writing it. And it was talking about the fact that the UK had a pretty low level of literacy in certain areas. And traditionally, construction and demolition has been a last refuge for those people with poor literacy for one reason or another. If we are, and bearing in mind we are still experiencing a skill shortage, if we are to head blindly down the road marked technology, rather than actually improving our employment situation, we're making it worse. And we are leaving behind people that are perfectly good at operating machines. They just struggle with the operating system within those machines. And I think that's a slippery slope. Personally, I think that's a slippery slope, and I will be writing more about it. It is one that's worth discussing, though, so please keep the comments coming in. Mick says, I remember I often talk about the old Haller I used to drive. I was in the North Star in Dublin one weekend. Lo and behold, I found it on the site next door 4 years later. See, these things happen. These things do happen. Peter McKenna says there is evidence that within the literature that employers and agencies do not believe people with disability are suited for many construction professions. There is also evidence of ableist practices within the sector that perceive people with disability as a homogenous group rather than a heterogeneous group. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. And bearing in mind, we've actually had this. I mean, Peter McKenna is a prime example. I realise it's a different level of disability because his is a physical disability. But bearing in mind, he arrived on a site, and if memory serves me right, was it HS2 or was it Hinkley Point? I can't remember. It was a major site, and rather than being welcomed as the experienced operator he was, he do you have any disabilities? Well, I've got one leg. Right, okay, we'll go and sit in that site office for the next 24 hours and we'll come back to you, and then we'll have to send you for a medical. And why don't know. Let's have a look. What else have we got? We've got something else coming up. Should we crack on? I think let's have a bit of this because I need to fire up the next one. Now, obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing Komatsu, Kobelco, Hitachi, Bobcat, Steelwrist, and a whole host of other big names while I'm at Intermat 2024. But I'm also looking forward to catching up with some other brands that might not be quite so big, but are producing some superb machines. Companies like Atlas Weyhausen or Waycore, depending how you want to go with that. I do have a film for you. It's on my hard drive. I do need to bring it up. Bear with me for 2 seconds while I do that. It is. Where is it? I'm sure it's here somewhere. Here we go.
Meyer, I'm working for the Atlas Weyhausen. We are selling wheel loaders with the brand Waycore, and we hope to see you on the Intermat. We have the Atlas excavator and Atlas wheel loaders. They were always separated companies, but nobody knows. Because the owners were brothers with the same name, Weyhausen. They had the same color, orange, and they had the same dealers. So everybody thought, oh, that's one company. No, two. Yeah. We were founded in 1971 for the wheel loaders and compaction. And the excavator company was founded in 1919. But they started with agricultural loaders for tractors and rail grabs and something like that, and they invented the hydraulic excavator. End of 40s, beginning of 50s, something like that. The same time Volvo invented the hydraulic wheel loaders. And in 1971, our boss, Mr. Weyhausen, has his own company, and he makes the wheel loaders, container changeover systems in former times, and we stopped that, and then we had compaction, as you can see.
Since 2003, 2004, and then mass production was in 2005.
Yeah. And we were founded in 1971 in Willeshausen, and so we are building wheel loaders since 53 years. But always separate companies, and the excavator company has been sold to several owners after the death of Mr. Weyhausen. And one of these owners said to us, you are not longer allowed to put the name Atlas on the machines, so we have to invent another name, and that's the name Waycore. It's a mixture from the company's owner, Weyhausen, and core, the core business. So the main problem for the Intermat, also the main target
Go for is
to put Atlas and Waycore together in the mind of the people. Yeah, because Atlas loaders are very well known in France, but Waycore, who's Waycore? Chinese, Korean? No, made in Germany, still made in Germany. We have wheel loaders from 2.5 up to 50 tons. So the smallest is 320 and the biggest is a 680.
in the bucket capacity, you're talking about 0.3 cubic meter up to 3.0 cubic meter, the big shovels. All in all, 18 different models. And we cover a wide range of applications because we offer different quick coupling systems, adaptation systems. We offer a huge range of hydraulic systems to the front, to the rear, trailer coupler, etc. So you can really tailor-make your machine according to your demand or demand of the customer.
We were working on electric loaders for Bauma 25. We will present the first machines in the lower class, 2.5 up to 3.5 tons. And 1 or 2 years later, we will come over with our main machine, the 420, so a machine with 5 up to 6 tons. That's the target at the moment. The people know Volvo big loaders, Caterpillar big loaders, Komatsu big loaders, because they're doing these machines for 50, 60 years, and we for 6 years. So that's the main machine you have to look for is a 660 on our road.
We are very well known for the compact size of machines, in general speaking. And so this is also the shape of our dealer in the past. Small and mid-sized dealer, very professional in handling compact machines. If you go to the bigger size machines, it's also a little bit changing the dealer network, so that we need some dealer which are capable to handle also this quicker, the big equipment.
And making them name Waycore, then the head of the people the same as Atlas.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Atlas loader, so it's the same as a Waycore loader. We didn't change, we changed only the label on the machine, not the machine. We have 3 targets.
Yeah.
Market share, dealers, and making the name more known.
Nice pair of fellas. Really got on very, very well with those indeed. And looking forward to seeing them again. There's our friend Mick saying, nice loader. Yeah, they do make a very good loader. And despite all the name changes, the Atlas Weyhausen, the Waco, and all of that kind of thing, they've been around for years and do obviously make a very good compact loader. And I certainly remember their excavators from way back when, always exceptionally good. Remember those from back in my SED days. But really looking forward to seeing those wheel loaders and taking a closer look. There's lots and lots going on in the chat, but as we're at the end of the show, I tell you what, I'm going to save it. So I'm going to wrap up the main part of this morning's show because we're already at an hour. Aren't we always? I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. And there's lots and lots that I need to get through. So if you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and anybody else as well. But if you do have the time and the inclination, and if you've got anything to say on all things disability, literacy, or anything else for that matter, please stick around, because I will be back with the Craic immediately after this. Yes, you'll be pleased to know that the background music, our monkey trap, is back. Good morning, everyone. How on earth are we all doing? I tell you what, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat because the end of the chat is where the meat is. So let me rattle through this very, very quickly. Blimey, goes back even further than I thought. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen, even earlier than usual, 9:57. He was online. It's like he's chomping at the bit, but he was listening rather than watching today, I think, for most of it, because he's very, very busy. There is Footy joining us as well. Ken Hatcher with his usual weather. Gary Muirhead. Morning, Gary. Thanks for today's question of the day, which I'll come to in just a second. There's Steve Williamson, who is all teched up and hooked up to 15 satellites, because why not? Footy, did you see the bridge in Baltimore when the container ship hit it and the bridge has come down completely and is in the water? I hadn't. As I say, I arrived late, and I apologise for that. Just couldn't sleep last night, and ended up doing part of the night on the sofa, and then went back to bed. So as a result, when the alarm went off this morning, I hit the snooze button, possibly 3 times. So when I arrived, I just switched everything off, including my notifications on my phone. So the first I heard about the whole Baltimore thing was when I finally came online. My apologies for not getting back to you. Mark Whiting is in the house. Good morning to you, Mark. Peter McKenna, morning. Oh, wow, now that's how to demolish a bridge. Seems a ship lost power twice before it collided with the bridge. They weigh some as well. I've not actually seen the footage, but I would imagine it's, when we're talking about ships rather than boats, I would imagine there's a fair bit of tonnage there. Who else have we got here? We've got Peter McKenna. I can hear you. Good. Chris Ford is here. Chris Ford also says, I'm fat. Well, basically me as well. Perhaps the Chinese have hacked your system. Yes, maybe. Actually, what it turned out to be, I did fix it. There's a couple of settings on my audio, so I can have my audio coming direct from here. It goes down a line and then comes into my ears, or I can set it to have the sound that you're hearing, so that things like the music that I've got playing in the background, which has just gone off, but I can restart it again fairly easily. That music, I can monitor that, so I'm hearing basically what you're hearing. The problem I had this morning was both boxes were ticked. So not only was I hearing what you could hear, I was hearing me too. It's not pretty. And it's like a half-second delay, so it does sound like you've got a bit of an echo, which is not a great way to work, but it's all done. We've got it sorted. I don't even know why I bothered wasting my time with the mystery machine this morning, because Steve Williamson got it in about 3 seconds flat, and it was the 8 MCR. Correct. Let's have a look. This was the question of the day from Gary Muirhead, and it was this: if you could be a world leader, past or present, who would you be? Yeah, I as I say, quite fancy myself as Churchillian, making grand pronouncements and statements and fighting people on the beaches and stuff. But in the end, I decided I'd rather be Donald Trump, people of America, and then spend an hour just punching myself in the face, because it's what he deserves. There is Gary Muirhead saying, well done, Steve. Yeah, quite right too. And Steve actually saying, I know my Mechalac. If I'd have known that in advance, I wouldn't have used that machine. To come up with something a little more creative tomorrow. So, question of the day. Peter McKenna. The Dalai Lama. That's a good call. That is a good call. Is he a world leader? He's a world leader of a religion, so yes, why not? Why not? Apparently, Footy says lanky blanky Abraham Lincoln. I liked his hat. Not entirely sure I fancy being shot, but I liked his hat. I can see where you're coming from on that. As you know, not good news from the other side of the machine as well. Other side of the machine, other side of the pond. No, dead right. Gary Muirhead, again on the question of the day, and this was his. I know he wasn't a world leader, but he should have been. Martin Luther King Jr., when he spoke about his I Have a Dream speech, made hair stand up on your arms. And to this day, has there ever been a greater orator than Martin Luther King Jr.? I don't believe there has. Yeah, absolutely chilling to listen to some. And bearing in mind, when was that? Early 60s? And here we are, 60 plus years later, and we're still having the same conversations. Ahead of his time and died way too early. Steelwrist, sexy. Yeah, I think we may need to do, remember when Marks and Spencer's decided to make all its food sexy? This isn't just a steak and kidney pudding. This is a Marks and Spencer's steak and kidney pudding. That didn't sound sexy. That sounded like an idiot. But you get the... Yes, we perhaps we need to do a sexy Steelwrist advert. Careful, Gary. Demi will get jealous. Yeah, Demolition. Where is she? I think a lot of companies are keeping their powder dry ahead of Intermat. So there's not been a huge amount in terms of new equipment that was outside the interviews that we did while we were in Paris a few weeks back. So, but she will be back. Don't worry. Gary rightly asked, have you got the battery pin radio ready yet, Mark? We haven't, but we will. Not entirely sure how good it's going to look because the actual presentation was very good. But to demonstrate it, they actually had like a model, but it was working behind glass. Not really figured out how to make it look right, but we're working on it. Watch this space. Steve Williamson says more rotation torque. Definitely happy with that upgrade. Yeah, you can never have too much torque, which is why I'm sat here for an hour and a half every bloody day. Let's have a look. Chris Ford said he found the tilt rotator on the JCB open day complicated. Okay. I think give yourself a break. It is. I would imagine it's one of those things. First day, you'd be really thinking about it. Second day, thinking about it less. I think by the time you've been operating a machine with a tilt rotator for 3 or 4 days, it'll be second nature, and you'd be lost without it. Steve Williamson says gripper is a must. If anybody's ever seen Steve and Ed Butler actually working with the gripper, you'll know precisely what he means. Gary Muirhead, can't wait to see it in person on the stand at Scott Plant. Yes, absolutely. Another of our number demonstrating to the greater public. We listen, we have the great and the good here, including, as you're about to see, our man Pat, formerly of Steelwrist. Who we got here? Steve says, I'll be using the new Open S Steelwrist option on the Knox tilt rotator in Paris. Looking forward to seeing that. There you are. That was precisely my thought. Seems like they've thought of everything. Well done, Team Steelwrist. They've been doing a lot of things in terms of customer surveys. It was one of the things that they did in the presentation. I've actually got some vertical videos. They're not particularly good quality, and I was using them predominantly so that I didn't have to write things down because there was a lot of talk going on. But I've got a couple of videos. I may well post them over on our WhatsApp group so that you can have a proper listen to what they were saying, because they have done a lot of work going out and speaking to customers and to dealers and to customers of dealers to make sure that when they come up with a new product, so it wasn't just the tilt rotator, they've got new compactors, they've also got new grapples as well. So they've gone out to their customer base, and it's not just a case of they've designed the new third generation Steelwrist in isolation or from an ivory tower. They've been out and they've spoken to customers and said, okay fellas, what would you like? And what they would like is basically what you've seen on your screen earlier on. And there he is, the man that put Steelwrist on the map here in the UK. After all the years of preaching, it's great to see tilt rotators in the mainstream media. Yeah, as I said, not entirely sure I qualify as mainstream media, but great to see Pat here. And obviously, I mean, I know he jokes later that he's not dead. Industry's not quite the same without you. Front and centre, Pat. Get yourself back front and centre where you belong, because it's better with you. There is Steve Williamson. 12 years working tilt rotators, are still learning new ways to do different tasks. 12 years? You're but a child, Steve. What did you start when you were like 10? Good Lord. That was relating back to the Komatsu video. I've worked for DGS. They're a great company. One of my mates drives for them, and they're at the very forefront of tech on site. Clearly. Product Link has come a long way, says Gary Muirhead. It most certainly has. I tell you what, I'm going to rattle through all of that because that's not what we need, not what we need, not what we need. And there is our friend Pat saying, I'm not dead, just having a little break. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. I beg to differ. So, discrimination. And yes, as I say, I am currently working on an article. I'm making notes at the moment, try and get it in some semblance of order. But a couple of things that really came out of it. This, I think it was the Leach report. It was commissioned 20 years ago, came out about 18 years ago, and it was predominantly targeted towards education and skills and stuff. But one of the things that they highlighted within the report, or as part of the report, was the lack of literacy in certain parts of the construction industry. As far as I can tell, and as far as the more recent reports have stated, we haven't really moved that far. And now that's fine. But think about a couple of things that have happened in the industry of late. So the loss of grandfather rights and the switch to an MVQ system. If you were, up until 2 years ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, thereabouts, you could have been an operator, with very questionable levels of literacy or possibly fully illiterate. But because you've been doing your job for as long as you have, you were perfectly able to carry on doing it. And then someone somewhere in the upper echelons of the industry decided, you see those goalposts? Yeah, we're going to move them. And we're going to put everyone on an MVQ. And that MVQ requires, well, you have to apply for it online. Problem if you're dyslexic or semi or fully illiterate. You have to sit an exam. Again, problem if you have literacy issues. And then, which is where we come into all of this, is this notion of the advent and the adoption and the widespread utilization of technology. And even setting aside actual technology, I know we're talking a lot about GPS, but even when you think about, you take delivery of a machine, and a lot of them have now got a display in there, and you've got, you have to set up your machine for your flows and your pressures and all of that kind of thing, all of which is largely text-based. That's a problem. You've got warning signs on the machine, on the cab, on the window, all in text, all a problem. You've got an operator's manual, which is probably text-based as well. Again, it's a stumbling block. Are we actually saying as an industry, we're going to draw a line in the sand, and if you have literacy issues, you are no longer welcome? Or are we going to do our level best to bring those people with us? And I know it's something that comes up a bit later on. To turn text to speech is a piece of piss. I wrote an article yesterday. I wrote it on Sunday, but I published it yesterday about 3 of the young people that I met up at JCB last week. Been very popular. I think we're up to about 6,500 views on the thing now. But LinkedIn, free of charge, doesn't cost me anything. LinkedIn have taken my article, and you can go and listen to that article. I think it's a woman doing the voice. I can't actually remember. But you can basically go and listen to that article. I didn't ask for it. It didn't cost me anything. It doesn't cost you anything. They have just decided, for accessibility point of view, there will be those that can't read or would prefer not to, and therefore they've put in place a system whereby you can press a button and you can have that information delivered right into your ear holes. Why are we not doing that within the industry itself? That's the question. Steve Williamson, don't you think skid steers just look awesome? They do, particularly if the skid steer happens to be, that high drive. The Kubota has it. I know some of the Bobcats have got it. A couple of the Caterpillars have got it, where you've got the high drive. What did Caterpillar call it? The elevated sprocket design. So you've got the sort of triangular shape to the tracks. Love a bit of that. That's Dan Cullen enjoying the Remoquip tune. That was my choosing. I decided it needed something a bit 80s futuristic, I think I called that. Again, lots and lots to talk about equality and ableism and stuff. Mick Norton says a loss of limb or limbs will not debar you from operating construction equipment. Yeah, so let me ask you the question, and I'm throwing this out to everybody. I'm not aiming this at anyone in particular. If a colleague on the site that you're on lost an arm, a leg, a hand, or a foot, you would like to think that your employer would do something appropriate to allow them to come back to work. Once they'd recovered, once they were back up and running, they would allow them to come back. Some have even gone as far as modifying machines to put lifts in for wheelchair access and stuff like that. To my mind, that's exactly what we're talking about with the advent of text-based technology. Technology has shifted. There are some people that can't. So what are we doing as an industry? And I'd say that from an employer point of view. I say that from a manufacturer point of view. Across the board, I think everybody has got a duty of care to those within the industry to take people with us. I really do. Chris Ford, question of the day. Mikhail Gorbachev nearly united Europe with Russia without firing a shot. Yes, he did. And do you know, here's a bizarre thing, right? So there is it's not there anymore, actually. I'll update myself. There used to be a pub just up the road from me, about, 3 miles away, called the Hinchley Wood. And it was called that because it's in a place called, guess it, Hinchley Wood. And the Hinchley Wood pub, we used to go there for Sunday lunch. And it was Harvester, Beefeater-esque. We're not talking fine dining here. We're talking about families going there for piles of vegetables, Yorkshire puddings, and bits of beef. Nothing posh at all. Mikhail Gorbachev and his wife called in there for lunch once. You imagine being sat there thinking, there's a guy over there, looks just like Mikhail Gorbachev. He's even got the birthmark on his head. Well, bugger me, it really is the man that nearly reunited Europe. Yeah, there for his Sunday roast. Who knew? That's the Remoquip again. Dan Cullen says he operated that at Hillhead. Dead easy, isn't it? Dead easy. And I say that as somebody that's largely incompetent behind the levers. I found it very, very straightforward. I'm going to go and look at this Baltimore thing after the show because obviously it's happened. Well, it happened before I came on live, but I haven't had a chance to actually catch up with it. So go back to this one from Jim. Are these disabled operators are asking for anything to be changed in their favour? Fair play to them for playing their hand as they're dealt. So like I said, should be discrimination if you won't employ them because of what they are, but if they can do the job like everyone else with the same kit, fair enough. We're all different and not everyone can do what someone else is capable of. All absolutely true. But, and I'm going to use your last sentence here, they can do the job. People like Footy have proved that they can do the job. Peter McKenna can do the job. But somebody has decided in their infinite wisdom, yes, you can do the job, but we now need you to do the job like this. Over here with this fancy system that we know you can't operate. Why not take them with us? And as I say, for the sake of some free software that turns text into speech. And as I say, the JCB UX system, they've got how-to videos. You literally turn on the UX. I don't know how to do the thing. Press the button. And somebody will tell you in your native language, this is how you do the thing. Is that really that much to ask? Don't believe so. here's Mick Norton, and this is my point entirely, I think. The GPS cab control device manufacturers have the technology at their disposal to modify functionality to facilitate text to voice. They need to cut the waffle and start installing to assist the plethora of end users who have literacy problems. And not, I've no idea what that was, not just those with literacy problems. So, if you remember rightly, at the beginning of the year, I took a vow that I was going to read 50 books this year. Still well on track. I think I'm about 14 in now, maybe, possibly 15. And here's the thing. There are some books that I choose to read like a book. It's one on my desk. I finished it, but it's on my desk at the moment. I've chosen to read that as a book, so that I can, put my index tabs in there and make notes and stuff like that. But there are other books that I choose to listen to. When I was traveling to Hamburg with Steelwrist, I listened to an audiobook. When I traveled to Paris for the pre-Intermat press days, I was listening to an audiobook. I was listening to an audiobook when I went to pick my wife up last night. I have the choice. And it's not costly. It's not even expensive. It's, by and large, in many cases, it's completely free. I write some of my more personal stuff on a platform called Medium, and Medium basically takes everything that I write and converts it into speech. I don't ask them to; they just do. And it's something like 32% of my articles are on Medium are consumed through there rather than through there. People are making that choice, so why not give everybody that choice? Here's a good point, and I've got a bit of an add-on to this. There you are. Mick says, and I'm not sure how many people remember this. Years ago, when I first went into demo, there was lots of blokes with different bits missing. Arms, legs, eyes, but they all worked and were up on the walls. Just a thought. And these were the blokes, he says, who had been fighting in a war 10 years earlier. Yeah. I mean, Mick, you've got a year or two on me, but, I remember that. You used to see lots and lots of people with missing arms and missing legs and largely pre-prosthetic. You also used to see, do you remember seeing people with those built-up boots? Where I think they'd been born with one leg longer than the other, so they built up a boot to make them able to walk and stuff like that. Obviously, medicine being what it is and prosthetics being what they are, we've come a long, long way. But lots and lots of people, and we found a way to allow them to work. Surely that onus is still upon us as an industry, as employers, as regulators, to make it possible for people to work, rather than to sideline them just because we've got the hots for some new piece of technology. Peter McKenna says, in our profession there needs to be diversity, and people with any disability should not have to fight to become part of it. We should welcome them and allow them to shine. Everyone can gain. Just think how you'd feel if it was your son or daughter who had that disability and wanted to be shaping the built environment for everyone to enjoy and use. Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And bearing in mind, when you think about the different types of disabilities, right? So Peter McKenna has his one leg. Getting in and out of a machine, as we discussed yesterday, even if you've got both legs and you're fully able-bodied, not the easiest thing in the world. I think that could be improved. But if you've only got one leg, bloody hard work. But he can do that. Now, in order to make that really, really easy, we could insist that all manufacturers made a lift for their machines. And maybe we'd have a few more people not getting bad knees and bad hips as they got older. But that is an expensive fix. And I realise that shouldn't stand in the way, but it is an expensive fix. When you're talking about something like text to voice, it's free. It's freely available. All you need is for somebody within Topcon, Trimble, Cytec, Leica to say, Flick that switch so people can listen to it. And again, I go back. I was talking about books. I know lots and lots of people, Nigel Williams being one. There was a time when people used to operate machines with music blaring out. A lot of them listen to podcasts or audiobooks while they're doing that now. Would that not be a great idea if you could listen to instruction? Just saying. Dan Cullen says, sun is splitting the rocks even though the forecast was pissing rain all day. Make the most of it while you can. Steve Williamson says, I applaud you for putting the phone on silent and putting it away. It's never out of my hand and I hate it really. Yeah, it's listen, I've gone way further than that. 9:30 every night, my phone goes into do not disturb. Doesn't ring, doesn't show me notifications. I pick up on them the following day when it comes back on again. And I regularly turn it off, even if I'm working or I'm really concentrating on an article. I've taken Facebook off my phone entirely. I don't want it. Don't want it in my life. Too much nonsense, too much toxicity, I guess is probably the word. Some of the crap that goes around in this business, and everybody seems to think that I should be made aware of it. Not interested. I'm done with all of that. You can have your petty squabbles and your backbiting. You go and do that on your own time. I'm over here doing what I do. Going back to our question of the day, Nelson Mandela. Yeah, good call indeed. William Hewitt Gladstone, says Mick Norton. Another good call. Mick says, and I think we're going back to Baltimore here, bear in mind. If what is coming out on the news, one person critical and looking for 7 others, not being cold-hearted, but thank fuck it happened in the early hours and work was going on at the time. Just hope they find them alive. Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed indeed. Mick Norton says, as someone who once was fair to middling on a drag line, I wonder if my eye-to-hand coordination will be good enough for a Steelwrist application. Good question. A quarter of construction workers consider themselves to be neurodiverse, according to a report by the National Federation of Builders. The figure is higher than that of the general public, among whom 1 in 7 is estimated to have a neurodiverse condition. I've even used the term neurodiverse. I think I need to understand exactly what they mean by that. I think that's an important thing. I do think that's an important thing because we're talking specifically here about literacy, but there will be other issues as well that will come under that neurodiverse heading. I need to do some homework. Footy says discrimination in the demolition trade because I haven't got a demolition ticket, but I can still do it because I've worked on the munchers, grabs, breakers, loaders. But not allowed to do it now because he hasn't got a ticket. Again, somebody somewhere has decided to shift the goalposts. And who does that benefit? Genuinely, who does that benefit? It doesn't, as far as I can tell, it doesn't benefit anyone. A lot of this stems from either companies or organisations like Build UK or the Construction Leadership Council, who basically sit in their ivory towers and decide what everybody's going to do next year to make their life really difficult, or it's proposed and policed by the training organisations. But does that make sites better? Has anybody ever seen a headline that read, "My life was saved by an NVQ"? I don't believe you have. If you have, please let me know. I don't believe that's the case. Somebody has just decided to move the goalposts. And why do you move the goalposts? By and large, a lot of the reason that people move the goalposts is to make money. Imagine that conversation. We've got all of these operators out there on grandfather rights. But if we were to make sure that they have to sit an NVQ, just imagine the money that would flow through the doors. Has that made them a better operator? No. Do they have a new piece of plastic? Yes, they do. Does that make them more competent? No. What it's done is just lined the pockets of some people who have decided, they've decided to move the goalposts, and the rest of the industry went, yeah, all right then. We should have said, up yours. Mick Norton says, I remember a military instructor mate who had lost a leg physically demonstrating to a young TA soldier on how to use a starting handle to crank up a large generator. When the starting handle kicked back, my mate was thrown back and his prosthetic leg came off. The unaware TA soldier fainted. I think I might have done the same. I think that bloke's leg just fell off. That would take you by surprise, I have to admit. I think that will do us. That's an hour and a half of your life you're never going to get back. As I say, I am still working on this thing about literacy. I do need to go and teach myself about neurodiversity. I also need to go and get up to speed with all that's happening over in Baltimore. Fingers crossed that all is well. Let's just hope that all of the 7 that are missing apparently are found safe and well. Thoughts go out to them. Obviously, thoughts go out to the first responders that are dealing with that absolutely terrible situation over there. I'm going to be back tomorrow for... It won't be the same as today because, frankly, today has gone all over the place. But I'll be back here tomorrow for something. If you'd like to join us, please do that. I'd love to see you here. Till then, everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you on the morrow. All the best.